Stop asking whether Volume 2 was good or bad and stop arguing about pacing, because if that's the conversation you're having, you're missing the most terrifying breadcrumbs that Duffer Brothers just dropped for the finale.
While everyone else is fighting on Twitter about performances, the real story is buried in the dialogue of Episode 7, and it points to something genuinely disturbing. There is a concept quietly introduced that reframes the entire ending of the series, and it's what I'm calling the Suicide Pact. Volume 2 didn't bring Callie back just for fan service. Her return introduces an idea so dark that it changes how the show can possibly end. The government isn't simply hunting Eleven to eliminate her, they are hunting her to reproduce her. Eleven and Callie come to understand that as long as they exist, the cycle will never end, and because of that, they seem to agree on a plan that ensures neither of them is meant to survive Episode 8.
This theory explains why the finale takes place on New Year's Eve, why destroying the bridge could reset everything, why Dr. K may be the most evil human villain the show has ever had, and why Will and Mike's relationship may be the emotional key that stops the apocalypse altogether. The darkest revelation in Stranger Things arrives when we learn what Dr. K has really been doing inside the Upside Down. The base isn't a listening post or a research lab, it's a farm. Callie reveals that after her gang was executed, she was subjected to reproductive experiments where her blood was harvested and transfused into pregnant women. The goal was to restart Brenner's program and create a new generation of psychic weapons to fight both foreign enemies and interdimensional threats. The problem was that Callie wasn't strong enough. Her blood failed. That's why Dr. K needs 11, and Callie understands this long before 11 fully does. In Episode 7, there is a quiet but devastating conversation that many people glossed over. Callie convinces 11 that the hunt will never stop. Even if Vecna is killed and Hawkins is saved, the system will persist. Dr. K or someone just like her will always come looking, because 11 isn't seen as a person, but as renewable source material. From that realization comes the Suicide Pact. Callie proposes that the only way to end the cycle, the only way to stop more Henrys and more monsters from ever being created, is to eliminate the source.
The plan to destroy the bridge with a time bomb isn't only about trapping Vecna. For Eleven and Callie, it's about staying behind. If they are inside the wormhole and it collapses, they are erased from existence. No more test subjects, no more labs, no more programs. It mirrors Hopper's sacrifice in Season 3, but this time there is likely no miracle rescue waiting on the other side. That brings us to what actually happens when you destroy a bridge while standing on it. The Upside Down has now been redefined as a wormhole, a tunnel connecting 1983 Hawkins to Dimension X, held together by exotic matter. The finale's plan involves detonating a bomb near that exotic matter to collapse the tunnel entirely.
If the Upside Down is anchored specifically to November 6, 1983, the day Will vanished, then destroying it might do more than seal the gate. It could sever the connection to that moment in time altogether. This opens the door to a timeline reset. If the bridge is destroyed, Will's abduction may be undone. The ending could be bittersweet, with the timeline correcting itself so that Will never goes missing, 11 never escapes the lab or possibly never survives it, and the party never meets at all. They grow up safe and normal, but as strangers. It's a Donnie Darko-style ending that fits the tragic, inevitable tone Season 5 has been building toward. Of course, the emotional anchor of all of this is WillByers and Mike Wheeler.
Episode 7 finally gives us the scene where Will talks about his feelings, hiding them behind a story, while we see Mike beginning to understand what those feelings really mean. This isn't just about romance, though. It's about mechanics. Will is now confirmed to be a vessel. He's connected to Vecna in a way that allows power to flow both directions. Vecna can siphon from Will, but Will can also hurt Vecna through that bond. In the finale, Vecna will likely try to fully possess Will in order to merge the worlds. Will be lost in a psychic storm, and the show has already taught us how someone is pulled back from that place. It happens through music and through love.
We've seen it with Max and running up that hill, and we've seen it with 11 and Mike's declaration in the pizza freezer. This time, Mike becomes the anchor. He doesn't just stand by, he actively pulls Will back from the edge. This reframes the Byler arc not as fan service, but as a structural part of the plot.
Their bond becomes the emotional counterweight to Vecna's control. If Will is the vessel and 11 is the weapon, Mike is the heart that keeps them human. There is also a looming twist with the villains themselves. Vecna presents himself as the mastermind, using personas like Mr. Whatsit to manipulate the kids, but flashbacks show Henry discovering the shadow entity long before he believed himself to be in control.
When Vecna says he invited Will in, the framing suggests it isn't truly Henry speaking, but the Mind Flayer speaking through him. Henry thinks he tamed the spider, but cosmic horror doesn't work that way. The Mind Flayer is the real big bad, and in the finale, it may discard Vecna entirely. Henry is a puppet who has simply outlived his usefulness. That sets the stage for a three-way conflict between the party, Vecna, and the Mind Flayer itself. If the Mind Flayer turns on Vecna, it creates the chaos 11, Kali, and Will need to execute their final plan. This may be the only scenario where 11 survives at all, pushed out of the collapsing wormhole at the last possible second. The most likely outcome is devastating, but not hopeless.
Kali dies to save 11, fulfilling the Suicide Pact in spirit, if not entirely in practice. The Mind Flayer consumes Vecna. Will is saved through Mike's emotional intervention, with at least a moment of acknowledgement that validates their bond. The Upside Down is sealed, but the trauma doesn't magically disappear. The world survives, but it's scarred, and so are the people in it. Volume 2 was dark, but the finale is shaping up to be catastrophic. The real question isn't whether the pact exists, but whether 11 is truly meant to die with it, and whether destroying the bridge erases more than just monsters.